What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the Asian MMA podcast, where we talk about anything and everything going on in the world of Asian MMA. I'm your host, Dana Bluen, and I'm joined today by the most valuable free agent journalist in the MMA space, my boy, Ant Walker. Ant, thank you for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's about time we got some working together. We've been in touch with each other for quite some time, but it's nice to get it officially down, and we're working together. I like it.
Yeah, hopefully first of many, man. First of many.
Definitely will be.
So I wanted to talk to you because we both kind of been in this space with Asian MMA for a while, and we go back and forth on a lot of stuff. Last week, something really interesting happened. Shinya Aoki published an article in Japanese that ended up getting translated, put up on Twitter, where he was essentially dogging One Championship, which I thought was strange because him and Chatri have a very close relationship. I would say closer than Chuck and Dana. And so to see Shinya kind of step out of that circle was interesting for me. Did it strike you kind of as being off?
Yeah, it definitely kind of struck a chord with me because he's been one of those longtime representatives of Evolve MMA. Yep. He's been one of the faces that they constantly promote for One Championship. And just on top of that, beyond his tenureship with One and his relationship with Chatri, he's one of the legends in mixed martial arts. He's a guy that well before One Championship was ever a thing, Shinya Aoki was turning people into pretzels in Dream and Sengoku and wherever you found him. So I was really kind of taken aback by it, but everything that unfolded afterwards, just wow.
Yeah. Let's talk about Shinya's background and his relationship with Evolve and Chatri real quick before we get into all the craziness that happened after that went out on Twitter. But I thought the most interesting thing was, if you even go back, and I've put up links to this in the past. I have it on AsianMMApodcast.com, where Chatri used to corner Shinya Aoki in some of his fights. I mean, that's how far back their relationship goes. There's an early 1FC, I think it was 1FC 2 or 3, where Chatri is, before people knew he owned it, is cornering Shinya, and their matchmaker Matt Hume is the referee for the fight. And you got Chatri in the cage after the win hugging Shinya. I mean, they've always had that really close relationship, and people who on the inside, I think, sort of know the culture that One has and the role Chatri plays is kind of like the guy there. And to see, of anyone, I would have never suspected to see Shinya step out and make the claims that One's going broke, fighters should find a new home, find a new way to make money, is essentially what he said.
Yeah, I think before I even go into that, I just have to address the feeling of alienation and total just total desperation that Shinya Aoki's opponent had to feel when he could see the head of the company cornering his opponent and the referee being part of the loop as well.
Yeah,
not a good day for your man.
Yeah, but imagine what that feels like.
Man, that's a bad day at the office.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, man, Shinya just he spilled a lot of beans. Like he really let a lot out that we don't hear too often. Like a lot of times when we hear of fighters speaking about their promoters, unless we have like these odd situations where like Mike Tyson beat up Don King or something, extreme to that nature, we typically hear like some air of optimism, like you want things to work out, or you want this to work out, you want it to get better, and if this gets fixed, and like you kind of hear that tinge of optimism. Like I think back to like Dana White's feuds with his on and off feud with Tyron Woodley, where you'd hear like this sense of, okay, maybe we can get this right.
Yeah,
but you didn't hear that at all in Shinya's statement. It wasn't an air of optimism to it. It was just like, yeah, the sky is falling. Yeah. Get out of Dodge. I don't know what to do next. That's kind of what it sounded like to me.
With Dana was never that bad.
Right. They still came together when it was time to cash those checks.
Yeah.
So I even to the fact where like Tito was even included on like the 25th anniversary stuff that happened in the UFC last year. Like it is really, really crazy to hear Shinya Aoki kind of out so much about one championship in that statement.
Now, one of the things that we know, and we know a lot of this because of one, the great work that's done over at Bloody Elbow, where they've kind of uncovered quite a bit, and then our boy Jonathan of Kowloon on Twitter, who sort of one of the anonymous guys who's out there retweeting and sharing stuff. So big shout out to him. But we know from one's financials, their public financials, they've taken a lot of money from different VCs, Sequoia Asia among them, and they're losing money like crazy. They don't sell tickets, so their gates are like in the thousands of dollars. They don't actually sell advertising. Most of that, from what we see from their financials, is in-kind service. So they're not making money on like those Marvel advertisements or those big movie deals that they have on the canvas. So they're hemorrhaging money. So to see someone like Shinya say this, it's very, very clear that something is going on. And the other thing he talked about was that they don't have anywhere near the traction in Japan that they seem to say they do. You know, despite apparently 85 trillion people watched One Century, you know, just in Japan.
Right. I guess they were counting like microorganisms that happen to be near the TV or something.
Every cell in your body counts as a person.
Yeah, just crazy. Like it doesn't make any sense. Their numbers, and I don't know. We've had our personal conversations about just the buffoonery of the numbers that they claimed for One Century, as opposed to the numbers that were actually released based on pure hard data, and how that wasn't even the best the best ratings of MMA programming in Japan for that weekend.
No,
you know, and it's
not even close.
Yeah, not even close. And so what's so interesting about Shinya Aoki's his article was that it validated a lot of the things that a lot of people are doing real, genuine research on. Yeah. And the only contradicting things that we have to say that, okay, the numbers are what they say it is, and they're making this amount of money and all that are dressed up PR pieces.
And unfortunately, we both see this in the media. A lot of times those PR pieces make it onto certain websites as articles.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, and that just sort of helps perpetuate the ideas. And I saw quite a few people tweet out the 85 million thing. And, you know, that one was so ridiculous, though, that even people that you would normally see sort of tweet out or post stuff like that didn't.
It was crazy. Like, what I found really crazy about that was that people who are known in the MMA space that normally don't comment a lot about one championship. Like they'll acknowledge, okay, you know, Angela Lee is a dope fighter. They'll acknowledge that Shinya Aoki still has it. They'll acknowledge, you know, Ang or whatever. They will acknowledge certain things that are undeniable truths about it, or even just the fights are good. But they were commenting on things that they normally don't, which is the ratings. They're kind of like, this is just silly. Like I think about like Aaron Bronstetter of TSN. Shout out to Aaron. He's one of the nice guys in the industry, but you know, very good dude. And he normally, you know, with TSN having a broadcast partnership with the UFC in Canada, of course, most of his coverage is going to be centered around the UFC. But I mean, he instantly was like, bro, like 85 million, really? Like really? And it's drawing attention that just isn't necessary. So when Shinya comes out there and says certain things, it's like we can think back to the ridiculous numbers. We can think back to some of these fluff pieces and all that, and we could just see smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course how you know, I don't want to throw any allegations out there that we can't substantiate on the show, but you know, when he backtracks off that statement and offers like a multiple choice of excuses of why it was misinterpreted, it sounds like it can I curse?
He can curse
because it sounds like bullshit.
It smells like it too. You know, this is the thing. I mean, for the most part, One Century was an amazing show. It was a bit too long for me. I was like, and I can only imagine if you're in the West, like people who stayed up and watched both shows at One Century must have been hurting. But,
that was a rough night.
yeah, but as far as like a card or multiple cards and fights go, I mean, Shudo versus Pancrase prelims, champion versus champion, the Angela Lee Zhang fight number 2, Christian Lee coming out of 10 days notice and winning the Grand Prix as a late replacement. I mean, DJ, everything overall, amazing cards. And the bullshit that surrounds something like 85 million people watching it statements diminishes the quality of that card.
Absolutely. That is the single most frustrating thing about this company to me.
Yeah.
That is it, because the product is good. They have excellent fighters. The fights themselves are fun to watch. The only thing as far as a presentation standpoint is concerned, the only thing I'm not a particular fan of that team of commentary. I would switch things up on the commentary a bit, but I'm
a big fan. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of Michael Chiavello's over-the-topness.
I like Michael Chiavello, but pairing him with Mitch Chilson it's just too much. It's way too much. It's like tone it down.
I think Mitch is good on technical, but I agree that the two of them together sometimes it can be like, it's a bit cheesy.
Yeah, it's like everybody's just yelling at me. Like, just calm down, fam. We get it. It's fun. Just calm down.
My favorite Mitch Chilson thing ever, though, was when he called the Angela Lee Zhang fight, and he was saying, "Well, that was a beautiful belly to black suplex." Conversation for another day.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll probably talk about that one off air.
But ultimately, the Shinya thing really did, I think, shine a light at a lot of places. Like you said, a lot of people don't comment on one or they don't cover one because they have relationships with the UFC or it's just not
the
as
time zones and stuff. Yeah. It's because it's not easy for media on this side of the earth to cover one with a level of regularity, and which is totally understandable, because I'm pretty sure that could be the same for Asian media covering the UFC or Bellator or whatnot. So it all makes sense, but when you're attracting negative attention, you might want to change your approach. It's okay to not have 85 million people watching. It's okay. It's okay to not be raking in hundreds of millions of dollars and being the greatest thing in the world since sliced bread. It's okay. You just have to own what you are and embrace it.
And you talk about like not making hundreds of millions of dollars and not being the greatest thing, but one of the things that makes me think about is Chatri often talks about one championship as a startup, in the same way that a tech company is, even to the fact that they raised venture capital. It really feels like WeWork to me. You know what I mean? And now they've got the esports, they've got all this. And one of the things that Shinya said in the first version of his article that was published, that was translated, was that one has not been able to capture or cultivate any star power in Japan. And you think about that One Century show, they had champions from Shuto and Pancrase on there. Mei Yamaguchi was on that card, Yushin Okami, big names, or should be big names in Japan, and it falls flat. Shinya Aoki was on that card.
Yeah, he's certainly a star of Japanese MMA. So, the thing is, Japan has just been a tough one to crack unless it's a homegrown Japanese brand.
Ryzen,
yeah, like Ryzen, which is essentially the remnants of Pride.
Yeah,
put back together, and Dream, of course, had benefited from that legacy as well. You think about when the UFC bought out Pride, like they couldn't even run shows in Japan, like they couldn't run Pride any longer because it for the myriad of reasons that would be a whole nother podcast. So I would suspect that there would be issues with a Singapore-based promotion kind of trying to make their inroads into Japan and trying to do it with such gusto, just off rip. Like you've got to build up to these things, especially if the company is struggling, especially if we are to believe Shinya Aoki's statements and the reports of John Nash at Bloody Elbow, where they're hemorrhaging money and this money is disappearing.
It's running out.
Right, and we know that their big free agent acquisitions like Eddie Alvarez cost a ton of money for the company.
TRT Vitor.
Vitor as well. Yeah, we also can assume that a lot of resources are going into their esports, which personally I think will be the saving grace for the company. I think the esports will resurrect this brand. But then also, aren't they planning a movie studio as well?
Yeah, I think they filmed a movie with, I believe, Brandon Vera in it.
Yeah, so like at some point you have to start making some money back.
Yeah, the thing about esports too is I feel like Chatri's a bit indifferent about it, that this isn't his baby. And I don't know, but like he doesn't tweet about the esports as much as he does the MMA. They don't hype it. Despite they put on a big show recently, and I didn't see anything on Chatri's Twitter really about it.
Well, that's kind of disheartening. I mean, but I do think the esports has more of an opportunity for organic growth.
Oh, for sure. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised by the sort of indifference by Chatri about it.
Yeah. I mean, well,
also, like, why aren't they using DJ more for the esports stuff? He's technically their esports brand ambassador.
Yeah.
He's huge in the streaming space for Twitch. So, I mean, I would be like, hey, DJ, guess who's the new VP of esports at One?
Yeah, don't make the same mistake that Dana White did with DJ and a market neglected. But see, my point is with the esports having the chance for organic growth is that by making these exaggerated claims, by kind of perpetuating the ridiculous, they eliminate the opportunity for organic growth with One Championship as an MMA promotion.
For sure, yeah.
You think about the sort of brand loyalty that a regional promotion in the United States like LFA has. You think about the hardcore following that Invicta has.
Hardcore.
Yeah, like very hardcore followings that they have and people that are very loyal to this product and they've been able to thrive because you allow for organic growth. And we can even look at the UFC as one of those promotions early on.
For sure. You think about back in the day, Gladiator Challenge and King of the Cage, like people were fanatical about those.
Exactly. And by One insisting that they are something that they are not, they are eliminating the potential to capture that sort of wave, a wave that's much more enduring, that carries a lot more weight than bold claims that can't be backed by anything remotely factual.
If you think about it too, like to this day, how many people compare every show in Japan to Pride?
Every single time. Every single time.
Pride never die, right? And unfortunately, there's a promotion here in Bangkok called Full Metal Dojo that people, like you said, with Invicta are fanatical about Full Metal Dojo. People come from all over the world when there's a Full Metal Dojo event. And I think they probably do like 500 people in the club that it's in. But I mean, people are that fanatical about it. And I don't know anyone who travels, other than the Century show where I know people who went to Japan for that show. I don't know anyone who travels to Bangkok for this Friday's One Championship event. Yeah.
And
it's at a stadium not far from here, and I wouldn't even make the trip to that stadium. I'll just watch it on YouTube for free.
Yeah. They've I don't even know what to say, man. They're kind of tripping over themselves with some of these claims, and I'm glad that we've had this sort of admission of sorts from Shinya Aoki, even if it's not something that lasts as far as being officially on the record, since it's clearly been revised.
So let's get into that revision, because there was a second version of this put out there, and I got to give a shout out, and I'll retweet this when this goes live, but to, again, Jonathan of Kowloon on Twitter, who actually tweeted out he has an archived version of the original article, Andy has the new version. He tweeted it out with the significant changes in it. And so now Shinya has kind of walked back some of the claims he made, saying what they were misinterpreted or that he misspoke. And again, we don't know why, but I'm sure people can draw conclusions on their own.
Yeah. I'll just go out there and say that his revision didn't sound like he wrote it.
Yeah.
It took a tone of like, normally if things are just slightly misinterpreted, okay, things can get lost in translation, and that happens a lot, and it's okay. As you dial it back and you figure out what was really said. No harm, no foul.
Yep.
But the defiant tone in it, where it was like, kind of pointing the finger at Western media, that felt that felt a little tinge of Chaudhry in it, if you ask me.
So I had my own guy do a translation on the first and the second version, and Bloody Elbow's original translation was accurate as far as what he told me. And he's native Japanese speaker. Sat down with me, walked through the original and the Bloody Elbow that was done by was it Craven Fan was the guy who translated it. Said that is exactly accurate to what the original was. Archive version. That was an accurate translation. And this is coming from a native Japanese speaker who I work with. And so the revision, again, it had that tinge of, how dare you question me? You evil Western media, fake news.
Yeah.
MAGA hat, all that kind of feel to it.
Yeah. What it kind of reminded me of was when Will Chope recently kind of ran afoul of their good graces, and the very measured kind of diplomatic response followed immediately by a legal threat.
Yes.
That's kind of the same vibe I got, where it's like you're trying to handle this in the nice, mature fashion, but you just don't quite know how, so you want to lash out in anger.
Yeah. And now I've interviewed Chaudhry before on one of my business shows when we were still on speaking terms media-wise. And he has told me that his temper is his biggest weakness. Like, he knows that. So imagine being like that PR team and have like both ends of that being in the middle there.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Right. And it's funny because you think we talked about like the kind of the parallels with Dana White and Tyron Woodley, Dana White and Tito before, and those sort of dissidents. And when Dana flips out and drops F-bombs and tells people to go to hell, it's sort of funny, and it's sort of part of his personality. For whatever reason, Chaudhry's sort of executive presence, his sort of persona, doesn't come across as fun-loving when he's flipping out on people, or when he's really putting someone in a corner.
I could see that. I've never personally interacted with him, but judging from the persona that he displays in the public, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because his branding isn't even based on I'm trying to say being edgy like Dana's was, where Dana was like the bad guy of sports, and that presence was sort of necessary at the time that he really became a star in his own right. Chaudhry has taken the opposite approach. Yeah. Chaudhry has decided, hey, I'm going to be the good guy. I'm going to be the nice, kind promoter. And, one championship is about honor and integrity and morals. And, we're building heroes, not just,
superheroes.
Superheroes. Yes. Very important, as I wear my Captain America hoodie.
So does that make him the Professor X of Asian MMA?
Or the Dr. Frankenstein? I don't know. Yeah, man. So he actually maybe more the Amanda Waller.
There we go.
Nice little Suicide Squad reference for y'all. But I think when you have that sort of public persona, where you're preaching morals and integrity and being upright and being above this and above that, probably feels a lot more dramatic when you show the anger, when you show the temper, and when you show the negativity.
Little room for forgiveness, I guess.
Right. It's more jarring. I think anyone, it just as a kind of a joke amongst MMA media. A lot of times it's kind of like you haven't arrived until Dana White's yelled at you, or or gotten angry at you or something. I know the first time Dana got mad at me, I was pretty proud. It's like, wow, I made it. Like, I'm doing some work here.
I pushed that line.
Yeah, like, wow. Dana has directed his anger toward me with the microphone in front of him. Like, but Chatri doesn't have that same sort of persona.
Yeah. Well, in Asian MMA, it's, you don't earn your wings until one championship blocks you on Twitter.
I have seen a lot of people bragging about getting blocked by one on Twitter. So far they haven't blocked me. That might change after this comes out.
Yeah, that might change at 12 at noon Eastern time. check their Twitter at 12:01.
Yeah, I'll see what it is tomorrow morning.
Yeah, yeah, they're and a few people recently have been they went on sort of a rampage in December and blocked I want to say like 10 or 20 more people that were tweeting about it.
Oh, you know what? In December, in December, I was already let go from SureDog, so maybe I just missed the sweep.
And we should say let go due to what bureaucracy in the state that you live in, right?
Right. Yeah. Just that pesky independent contractor law in California. But we could also point the finger at SureDog's parent company for not just hiring me as a full-time employee. Considering the amount of work I was doing up there, but
they have any full-time guys at SureDog?
Very few, very few. One or two.
That's how media companies generally run today, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, they're trying to make content farms and not, being concerned about quality of work and people dedicated to their craft. So it is what it is.
That's the way to go.
Yes, sir.
I mean, either that or be a freelancer for life, right?
Yeah. I mean, those are the options for this life that we live.
Indeed. The MMA journalism is a strange, fickle thing.
Yes, it is. It'll chew you up, spit you out, and you'll come back for more.
Yeah, it kind of feels like journalism might be the way that Shinya is looking to go with that article, though. I mean, that's not his first that he's put out there, but probably his most serious toned. The original version.
I mean, I'll tell you what, he definitely put out something that was newsworthy.
Yeah.
Because that is a big deal. And, for all the jokes we can tell about exaggerated viewership and the true reach or financials of the company, for all the things we can say about that, it is true that One Championship is a major brand in mixed martial arts. Whether they, if they fold within the year the way Shinya seemed to be implying there, that's a whole nother conversation. But as of right now,
that is Sequoia allowing it to happen. So that's one of the things you have to think of. Sequoia or Mission is their other big backer. That is one of these major financial backers allowing it to happen. And even with WeWork, we saw SoftBank bail them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think personally, like you said, with esports having the opportunity for organic growth, and one is an MMA brand being really a major player and putting on some of the best shows, there has to be a road to profitability there somewhere.
Right.
So I would think that one of their backers would bail them out and be like, all right, here's a 12-month plan to profitability, or here's a 12-month plan to exit, follow it.
Yeah, it makes.
I don't know that maybe profitability is not in the cards for them, but maybe some type of exit is.
Maybe, I mean, even if they're less in the red, could be, because you think about the UFC spent years in debt. Like the Fertitta brothers, after they purchased it from SEG, were bleeding money for years before they turned a profit. So a lot of times it's just a matter of the initial investors just having the testicular fortitude to stick it out, man. That's really what it boils down to. It's like, how much money are you willing to burn through before you get something back? But the thing is, the rate that they seem to be burning money, that we don't see. In fact, we've seen, according to some of the stats that we saw on Bloody Elbow, like year by year, they're making less money. And they started off not making much money in comparison to what they were putting out. So if you keep following that trend, pretty dismal outlook, quite frankly.
But here's, I mean, the other side of that, and this is what I think of when I think of, all right, what does this have to look like? And sort of to play devil's advocate, maybe Shinya doesn't know all the big picture frameworks that one's putting in place from a business perspective, but he probably knows from his close relationship with Chatri or some other people that they are burning through more money than they have. But I have to think that for an outfit like Sequoia and Mission to put cash into one championship, Chatri had to go to them with a plan of how he's going to turn their investment into an increase in value. I've raised money from VCs before, and it's not something, they don't just sign a check over because they like you. They scrutinize everything. And I have to imagine Sequoia, who is one of the most storied investors in the world, probably went even deeper on that. So maybe they're just not hitting their metrics, or maybe they are, we don't know. I hope that they stay alive because I want to keep seeing those fights. And I like the frequency with which they put fights on. But there's got to be something there that they're not seeing. And I know when I interviewed Chatri before on one of my old business podcasts, he actually said that the whole idea of the app, the one app in the streaming, was Sequoia's idea. That wasn't him. So they obviously brought business acumen to the company after the investment. And they were like, hey, don't go after pay-per-view because no one in Asia is going to be able to pay for it. Let's give it away for free and monetize it on some tertiary side. I don't know what their plan is, but I imagine the pressure he's feeling from investors and board members has to be massive.
I'd imagine so. I mean, so was the Turner Sports deal, was that Sequoia's idea?
I have no idea. I mean, this was, again, my interview with Chachi was almost 2 years ago, where he told me that the app was Sequoia.
Okay, so I mean, there has, when you look at the Turner Sports deal and whatnot, I would jump out on a limb and say that business plan that Sequoia that big check being signed over to one championship probably had a lot to do with expansion into North America. I
would imagine it'd have to.
Yeah, that seems to be something big on it, because then you saw, like, granted, they did have Ben Askren before and Brandon Vera, but other than that, you didn't really have a lot of North American fighters making their way over to one, at least in any sort of major capacity, at least anything that attracted a lot of attention. Excuse me. And then now all of a sudden you get Eddie Alvarez, you get Demetrius Johnson, you get Sage Northcutt, you get Misha Tate as an executive. You bring aboard Rich Franklin, like Rich has been on for he's been on for a while.
Yeah,
but you have a fleet of well-known American mixed martial arts stars to be part of this company, to be either running the company in the boardroom or to be competing in the cage in main and co-main event spots and contesting for title belts and whatnot. And you have this broadcast deal that affects North American audiences. It seems like that would be the push. The only problem is, by the way they operate in more the regulatory sense, U.S. Athletic Commission's probably not going to let that fly.
I can't imagine them being greenlit the way they operate now by any promotion. You and I were talking right before we came on. Their head official, Olivier Coste, is a full-time employee. No way they let him ref a fight under a U.S. commission. And I don't even think he would be qualified in the state of California to be a referee. at all, let alone, whatever his role would be if they went to the U.S. And I don't think I've ever seen any of their other refs in a U.S. commissioned fight.
I can't recall seeing any of them.
Yeah. And so, again, would any of them, and they have good refs, don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying Olivier is a bad ref. He just has no credibility because he's an employee. He does a fairly good job of controlling the action, stopping fights when they need to stop. And for the most part, as do most of their refs. And they do well. But again, would a commission license any of them? I don't know. And would one be happy to have a Herb Dean or a John McCarthy, or no, McCarthy's retired, Herb Dean, Jason Herzog, reffing their fights? I don't know.
Yeah, and the thing is, they would have to, in order to get that U.S. expansion, they have to relinquish so much of the tight control they keep on every detail of the fight. Like, you think about when Pride made its, I think, 2 trips to Vegas.
Yeah,
a lot of things had to change along the way.
Drug testing.
And a lot of when half the card pops hot. Yeah. Well, it's a byproduct of fighting in the U.S. There are certain things that they're just going to have to relinquish control over, and I would hope that Sequoia, if would put pressure on Chatri about some of this stuff, if he's not already kind of thinking, okay, there's certain things we can and can't do in the United States if we want to try to take advantage of this huge North American mixed martial arts audience. Certain things we just can't do. And
the rules and the judging are going to be probably the 2 biggest ones, because they score overall, which has zero transparency, and which I hate. I'm a big proponent of round by round scoring, because fights are fought by round. That's always been my argument. I'm not necessarily a fan of 10-point must, but round by round scoring, if you're going to give a fighter a break in between rounds, you should score it as such, in my opinion.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that's going to be the biggest issue with the judging and the scoring, because that's just, it doesn't change the business going into it, but the business,
because they don't control it anymore.
But if you just let the contest take place, and and it's so important to get the American audience, okay, you just gotta relinquish control and just let it happen. But where I think things start falling apart is when we start talking about the conflict of interest with the agencies.
Yeah.
With
fighters fighting for one championship.
Exactly, when you have like the fighters coming out of the gym that the promoter owns and that he teaches classes at, and he spars with them, and the matchmaker being a coach at that gym and stuff. Those are the sort of things that will derail a U.S. show, and not necessarily the scoring and judging, because, hey, you just got to sit in your hands and take it for what it is. If you want to bring a show here, that doesn't necessarily change the product, as far as from the boardroom perspective. But the agency, the ties to Evolve, that changes fundamentally how the company is run.
Yeah, and a commission will have to take a close look at that. Now, I know that there's been a lot of talk about New York, Madison Square Garden. One, I don't think they could fill Madison Square Garden. They could do that small theater, probably 5,000 people.
The Hulu theater, but Madison Square. Well, the New York Commission is also one of the strictest in the country. Like, they are a very, very tough commission. This is the same commission that refused to allow Rashad Evans to fight there twice. They're very tough. Granted, they make a fair amount of mistakes, as the Daniel Cormier Talgate and the Kelvin Gastelum Talgate 2 will can attest to. But they're definitely
was an elbow, wasn't it? An elbow?
Oh yeah, sorry, elbow gate. Yeah. but like I would say you'd be better off if you're one championship going to Texas, going to Alabama, going to any place that would allow BKFC to operate. That
Montana.
You want to go there,
Yeah, but that's not
because
their style. They want a big name on the arena, and they want to say they sold it out.
yeah,
Now, by sold out, we mean that they're going to give away 3 times as many tickets as there are seats, and they're going to try to fill as many of them as they can, which is fine. That's their business model, but or lack of business model. But like, they don't want to say, "Hey, we have a sold out Joe's Bar in Westwood, Montana."
right.
They want to say we're at the sold out Madison Square Garden, in New York City. They want to say we're at the sold out. What's the one in Anaheim there? The
Honda Center.
Honda Center.
Yeah.
That's what they want. That fits with their marquee. Friday night there'll be at Impact Arena, which actually is not in Bangkok. It's in Nonthaburi, right outside the city. It'd be like Anaheim versus LA, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to say, "Oh, we're in the sold out, Impact Center," and then not let the camera pan up and show all the empty seats. So that's what they want, though. They want that feel. They want that marquee, and so they're not going to go to Texas. They're not going to go to Alabama, Montana, some Indian reservation. They're going to do what they have to do, I think, to get into New York or LA or Vegas.
Well, I spoke with a couple of people at the California Athletic Commission, and California State, nah, fam. Like that,
fam.
Yeah, they're just the vibe I got from the few people I spoke to about, because there was a rumor that one had made some sort of formal request to the Athletic Commission. In fact, I think we talked about this.
Yeah, we discussed it.
Yeah, we discussed it well before we ever pressed record on this, like months ago, or whenever that was. But I didn't get any vibe of optimism from anyone that I spoke with at the Athletic Commission, including Andy Foster, about one's chances of being regulated in California.
That let John Jones fight juice to the gills.
Right. Yeah, like California is definitely not without its sins, and UFC 232 being chief among them, ranked very, very closely by an event that took place the month before, and that was Chuck Tito 3. Yeah. So they definitely can. You can point the finger at them for some misdeeds, but it didn't seem like they'd be just welcoming one championship with open arms. And if they did, there are a lot of things they're going to have to change. And I mean, you think in particular, the weight cutting, or lack thereof, or their hydration system, whatever it is that they do to weigh in fighters at one. California in particular, which has prevented the UFC from running certain fights the way they originally intended based on their regulations. They're not going to give one any favors on that regard. They might raise an eyebrow when Demetrius Johnson is in the cage against somebody who looks like they belong at welterweight. They just might get a little suspicious about that.
They just might.
Yeah.
And, and especially, and I don't think they're going to care to say, "Hey, I don't care who tested this urine on ungloved." Yeah, we need to let them weigh in with our officials and understand that they are healthy.
Yeah, a picture of Rich Franklin in sandals with a cup of urine is not going to suffice for a weigh-in. So, yeah, they might have to change a lot of things in order to have a chance.
Push to broadcast the weigh-ins was maybe sort of a step in that direction, hopefully.
Exactly, and I think they deserve praise for that, for at least trying. Now, granted, there were flaws with it. If I'm remembering this correctly, like 4, maybe 5 people kind of failed their hydration test, and they fought with no problem the next day. There certainly were flaws with it, but it is a step in the right direction. And as much as I criticize them, as much as you criticize them, I think it is only fair if we give them praise for at least trying to make a step in the right direction.
For sure. And when they did that, I mean, I remember when I think all of us were kind of like freaking out when they scheduled that. I remember we have a little Twitter group, and everyone was like, "Holy shit, they scheduled a weigh-in."
Yeah, like, "Oh man,
what's that?"
They've been listening.
And also what they do they say they do 4 hydration tests during the week.
Right.
They're not gonna I mean, they could broadcast them all, but logistically, it's going to be a challenge, right?
It's not that
Maybe.
hard to do a live stream on YouTube.
Yeah, true. Get someone with a phone.
Yeah, it's not that hard. And when you're talking about like fights of this magnitude, where you're talking about the level of investor capital that's gone into this, somebody can just post up a little webcam and hit stream now on YouTube.
Very true. You know, and I've got to say, though, I mean, from the idea of their weigh-ins, I really like the whole hydration thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like you said, when I see DJ, arguably the greatest fighter in the modern era, fighting against a dude who's clearly 4 weight classes above him.
Yeah, when like DJ's opponent's thigh is bigger than him.
Yeah.
Probably not the same weight class. And if they are in the same weight class, one of them cut weight.
Yeah, exactly. A lot
of weight, and probably wouldn't have passed a hydration test. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying, like, common sense.
Discuss some of the rumors and things people have said off the record, you know, and I don't know if it's like that now, but it wasn't always on the up and up. And Will Chope talked about this, you know, in length in some of the stuff he's posted, especially since his fallout with One. And then you can listen on. I'll put a link to the other podcast with Will Chope where I interviewed him, and he did not hold back.
No, he did not. he did not.
And Will's earned the right to not have to hold back. I mean, the dude fights on a weekly basis, running a gym. He's running a promotion. He's the Joe Sixpack of Asian MMA. You know, fantastic guy. But yeah, I just thought the whole Shinya thing was so interesting and eye-opening, and then cringy, and then what the fuck ish, you know, all at the same time.
Yeah, it sort of encompassed everything that we criticize about One Championship.
Yeah.
And you know, like, it's okay to mess things up and be wrong about something. It's okay, but the way you handle it says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was handled very, very, very poorly. And then even their press release, like right afterward, where it announced all these partnerships that mean nothing, including a gym that, from what I understand, is like bankrupt and doesn't even run in Asia anymore. You know, it's
sponsorship things are just weird.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like this whole intent to just fool everybody with smoke and mirrors, while neglecting the fact that you have a fine product that just stands on its own.
Yeah, an amazing product.
It's just, I mean, kickboxing with little gloves.
I want that all day.
With little gloves. I mean, it's beautiful.
It's an amazing thing. And you know, it's funny because the people who I really like, they really push Angelo, they really push Stamp, and I mean, both of them are good fighters. But it's like the Shinyas or the Christian who doesn't get the shine that his sister gets, was probably my favorite fighter in One right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they try to manufacture stars, and then they've got all these other people who are sort of organically. Cosmo Alessandre has become one of my favorite fighters of 2019, just for his dismantling of Sage.
Poor Sage.
That was just poor matchmaking, and the fact that they accepted that fight, they should have known that Cosmo's a killer.
Yeah, that was intentional matchmaking. I think they very well knew what they were doing, and I think they did the same thing to Eddie Alvarez.
Well, that Timothy Nesteyukin fight was a tough fight, but at the same time, Eddie has to have a tough fight coming in.
Oh no, of course. Like yes, yeah, I'll give you that, but I think also Demetrius Johnson, when they pair him up with a guy that clearly doesn't belong in the same weight range as him, you know, I think they were trying to build up their brand and say, hey, we brought in these American UFC stars and our guys smashed them. That's how good we are.
That's
of course, DJ's just that good to where, you know, you could put DJ in there against a middling heavyweight, and he probably beat him. You know, like, yeah, DJ's just that good.
And honestly, other than Brandon Vera at heavyweight, they're all middling.
Fair enough. Yes, fair enough.
Maybe we'll see DJ in the open weight Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's just his opponent just has to pass the hydration test, and we're good to go. We'll book it.
DJ's fighting open weight at a fully hydrated 136.
Yeah, with his shorts on,
with a t-shirt or the hoodie. That's part of it. I mean, maybe they brought Sage in, maybe they brought Eddie in to get smashed. Maybe it was intentional matchmaking. Or maybe they really thought Sage will take Cosmo down and grind him for 3 rounds. But, I mean, anyone who's seen Cosmo fight knows that dude cuts angles and he hits hard.
Yeah, and you put the fight in the ring, so...
Yeah,
that definitely not Sage's world. So, it's a lot of questions that can be raised with that, but yeah, it's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Are you going to watch on Friday? Friday morning for you, or Thursday morning for you?
Friday morning. It'll be Friday morning for me. It depends on what my son says. With a newborn baby in the house, and I'm on his schedule. Sir. Thank you very much. I'm on his schedule, so he tells me what time I can do anything. The only thing I do independent of his schedule is go to my day job.
And even then,
today he didn't let me go in on time. So
yeah, it's Friday night for me here for one, so I'll be watching that, and then Sunday morning breakfast in UFC.
Not a bad weekend for you.
No, yeah, it's not bad. You grab some breakfast at my friend's restaurant, watch some UFC, have a cup of coffee, home for lunch.
UFC this weekend?
Is it this weekend, the 12th?
No. I think the next fight is McGregor's fight on the 18th.
18th, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, not this weekend, next weekend.
Yeah, I'm about to say, like, oh man, I better get on my job. I haven't tape studied or nothing, huh?
Yeah, I don't usually report on UFC because so many people do it well. I'd rather read what they do, like guys like you. And I'll stick to Asian MMA.
Hey, it makes it because I tune into your work to keep me updated with a lot of Asian MMA that I don't get to watch when it's going on live. So we'll just keep this bartering thing going on.
It works well. But anyway, let's wrap it up. Anthony, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I know it's late there. You get the baby and a lot going on.
It's all good, man. I'm just happy we finally got to sit down, do a little podcasting together, right. And then, I got to get you on my channel too, man. We'll make this time thing work out. We'll figure out. Yeah, you're 14 hours behind me, right? Jeez. So I'm like talking to you in the future right now. That's what's up. Yeah. It's a Thursday afternoon here. Man, that's pretty cool. So when it's my Thursday afternoon, I'll say in the alternate universe. I was talking to Dana. The multiverse. All right, Anthony, man. Thank you so much. Everyone, check out Anthony's channel, everything he does. I'll have links to everything Anthony is doing down in the show notes and in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. And until next time, stay happy.